All right, I wanted to do a quick section on using your calculator to help you with fractions. So you'll see in the 5.3 notes that there's a lot of different stuff on working with fractions, working on putting them in lowest terms, converting between mixed numbers and improper fractions, converting between decimals and fractions, working with fractions, doing multiplying, dividing, adding, subtracting, etc. The good news is you don't have to go back and learn all of those things again. You'll see some of that in the notes just as a refresher of, where all these things came from, how you do it if you don't have the help of a calculator. But this video particularly will be calculator instructions for you. So just in case it comes up during the course of the video today, don't forget that a fraction or a rational number has a top and a bottom to it. That top or bottom number can be bigger or smaller. It doesn't matter. In our case, we're going to work with our numbers the same way, whether they are a proper fraction where the top number is lower than the bottom, or an improper fraction where the top number is higher than the bottom, or a mixed number, as you see in the middle here with the 1 2/3, where it's a mix of a whole number and a fraction. We're going to work with those too. If there's a negative, still doesn't change anything. If there's a number that looks like a whole number, don't forget that you can put it over 1. So like this 2 in the middle here, if you put a 2 over 1, that will make it look like a fraction. The top number is called your numerator and the bottom number is called your denominator. So let's take a look at probably a typical scientific calculator here. This is a good calculator that I recommend, the TI-30X. It's a good scientific calculator. Should cost you between like $10 and $20, probably on the lower side on like Amazon, maybe on the higher side if you go to a bookstore or something like that. But this is a great calculator to have. It does much more than your phone calculators will do, and you're going to love it for working with fractions. So on a calculator like this one, you're going to see this button right here, this ABC button. That is your best friend when you're working with fractions. That button will let you input things as fractions. You just put that button between your numerator and denominator. So if you wanted to put in a fraction, for example, like 3/5, you're going to type in the top number, and then you're just going to hit that ABC button. And then you're going to put in the bottom number, and it'll stay on your screen like a fraction instead of turning it into something like a decimal. Okay, so that is a great option. When you put in fractions that way, it's going to do a lot of things automatically for you. So for example, reducing fractions. Reducing fractions is maybe not always super important anymore in college. However, if you have to do this, which means taking a fraction like 54 over 90, that can be made lower and lower, you can do it by using GCDs like we talked about in a previous section. Once you find that GCD, you divide both the top and the bottom by it, and it turns it into lowest terms. However, your calculator is going to do this for you automatically. If you put in this 54 over 90 using that ABC button, so it'll be 54 ABC 90, it's going to, and then you hit equals, it's going to automatically give you 3 over 5. It's going to take that fraction and automatically put it in lowest terms. So that is a great feature of using that button. Another thing that you can do on that calculator is work with mixed numbers. So again, a mixed number has a whole number and a fraction together. It means that you have a whole amount, such as 2, plus you also have a fraction, like 3/4. To work with mixed numbers in your calculator, you use that ABC button. You're just going to type that button between the 2 and the 3 and the 4 in this case. So you type in the whole number, you hit that ABC button once, you type in the numerator, you hit it again, and then you type in the denominator. So that will get into your calculator the 2 and 3/4. Now, what you might need to do with that mixed number is either work with it or turn it into an improper fraction. An improper fraction has a top that's higher than the bottom, such as 8 over 5. Improper fractions and mixed numbers are equivalent to each other. Improper fractions mean that there's at least one whole plus some extra fraction involved with it. That's what makes it improper in the first place. So improper fractions and mixed numbers can be converted back and forth between each other. Let me go back to that calculator picture for just a moment. You'll see over the top of your ABC key is this ABC with the 2 arrows and it shows D over E. That is your mixed number to improper fraction converter. So how you're gonna get that to work is you are going to use this second button up here. Let me see if I can get this as a little bit better color here for you. Let's try that again. You're gonna use that second button up here. That will give you sort of like a shift of and allow you to click any of the keys on your calculator there and get what's written in the light blue on this particular picture, but might be in a different color on yours. But basically what's written over the top of any of these is what that button will allow you to do. So if you want to convert between a mixed number and a improper fraction, what you're going to do is type in your improper fraction. So for example, the one that was on that previous slide was 2 3/4. So as I said, you're going to type that in like 2 and hit that ABC key and then type in your numerator and hit it again and then type in your denominator. And then what you're going to do to convert it to the improper fraction is you're going to hit that second button and you're going to hit that ABC key one more time. And that will automatically turn your mixed number into an improper fraction. So on this one, it should end up looking like 11/4 then. That would be the improper fraction version of that mixed number. Okay. And then vice versa, say you had the 11/4 and you had to change it back into the mixed number. You would type in the numerator, ABC, denominator. You would hit that second function, ABC again, and it'll turn it back into your mixed number for you, the 2 3/4. Okay, so that button will toggle back and forth between mixed numbers and improper fractions. You just have to make sure you use that second function to get it to do that back and forth action there. Okay, so that is something that's really easy to do. Instead of doing it by hand, you can convert between mixed numbers and improper fractions. The last thing I wanted to show you on here is this F to D key right above the one that we were working with here. It's above the PRB key, which stands for probability on here. If you're working with a graphing calculator, you might find this in your math menu. So if you hit your math key, you might see something about fractions and decimals in the one part. But on this scientific calculator, again, it's above the PRB key. So that means we're going to be using that second function key to get to it again. That thing up there will change a fraction to a decimal and a decimal to a fraction back and forth. So say you wanted to change something like our 3/5 into a decimal. Fractions do mean divide. So on some calculators, you can simply just divide 3 divided by 5. Okay. But you can also use this fractions to decimal. So you would type in your fraction and then you would hit your second key. And then you're going to hit that PRB key so that you get that F to D conversion going on. And it'll turn your fraction into a decimal. Okay, so that'll give you the decimal version of your fraction. You can also use it back and forth. So if you need to get the decimal back into the fraction, so when you do this one, it comes out to be 0.6 as the decimal. Well, what if you have that 0.6 and you want to turn it back into the fraction? Well, you use it just exactly the same way. You would type in the 0.6 first, and then you would hit your second, and you would hit that PRB key again so that you would get the fraction to decimal. And it'll take your decimal that you typed in and it'll turn it back into the fraction version. So that key will help you convert between fractions and decimals very easily. Okay. That's pretty much the main things that your calculator is going to do that answers and helps you with everything else in the rest of these notes. When you're trying to add or subtract fractions, even if they don't have common denominators, the calculator doesn't care. When you do it when you're doing that by hand, you have to get common denominators. When you're doing it in the calculator, it will do that for you behind the scenes as long as you're using that ABC key. So let me go ahead to those slides just for a moment, just to kind of give you some keys on those. So again, all these notes here are kind of showing you the by hand way to do these, but try them out on your calculator using those steps that I just went through. And you'll see that it does the same thing. And it's totally fine to use your calculator to do these things. That's one thing that I want you to get out of this course actually, is to start to feel comfortable using your calculator so you don't have to go back and learn every little thing again. Okay. And here's some examples of turning your fractions into decimals and decimals into fractions, so you can work on those with your calculator. Do pay attention to place value just because that does help you with rounding, but again, your calculator is going to help you do this. And then finally, multiplying, dividing, adding, subtracting fractions. So again, it does not matter if you get common denominators. It doesn't matter actually, even if you do it by hand to get common denominators for multiplying and dividing. What you're going to do with these is you are going to multiply straight across the top and bottom if you're doing it by hand. But in a calculator, you would just type it in. 3 ABC 5 times 7 ABC 8. So type in each fraction, just put whatever operation you're doing in between it. So if you want to multiply the fractions, you type in multiply. If you're trying to divide these two fractions, you would type your divide key in the middle. If you're trying to add these two fractions, you would hit your add key. If you're trying to subtract them, you would hit subtraction. So all the rest of these problems you can do by hand, like it shows in the notes here, or you can simply use your calculator. So in this one, I would type the 3 ABC 8 divided by 5 ABC 7. If I was trying to add two fractions together, whether or not they have a common denominator, like this one, I would type in 1 ABC 8 plus 3 ABC 8. It'll also reduce it down to the automatic lowest answer, so you won't even see this kind of intermediate answer. And even if they don't have common denominators, which is what it's showing you in these last couple slides, you're still going to be okay to type it in your calculator. Something like this one, you would just type in 13 ABC 15 minus 5 ABC 6. And it'll go right to the final answer here. You won't even see all that intermediate work. Totally fine to use this. Great extra shortcut. Make sure you learn how to use that key. And even when you're working with mixed numbers and proper fractions, you just type them in, using what I showed you about improper fractions and mixed numbers already. Type them in using your calculator. Again, it's going to go right down to the final answer. Just type in whatever type of operation you're doing in the middle, and it'll work with them just fine. Okay, so you can feel free to learn this all by hand, but do try practicing this on your calculator and see if that can be a shortcut for you and you can learn something new. I hope that was helpful to go through those different things, and we will catch you on the next video. I hope everything else is going well for you so far.